for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to see if we can do this next time. I think I have 9 different versions going. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Here. Trustee Gray.
Present.
Trustee Holtz. Here. Trustee Rogers. Present. Trustee Suisse. Present. Trustee Pedino.
Present.
Trustee Durian.
Present.
Mayor Georgevich.
Present.
Present.
Are there any amendments to the agenda? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of May 22nd, 2019 Village Board meeting? There were some changes.
So the change minutes.
Trustee Holtz,
Is there
do I have a second?
I did not know there was a change on this one. I didn't know for a change. Can you tell us?
So basically the changes were just a few punctuations, and Trustee Holtz wanted some statements made in there as well.
Yeah, I have.
Nothing too crazy. The changes should be marked in your packet.
Are they read?
Here. They were placed on your guys. There you go. So there is a first, I just need a second if there's any discussion.
I think they want to finish this going over. I mean,
There's a lot of red.
Yeah, we just got this deck to us that says we
Yeah,
want it.
we can always take it. Really good one.
Yeah, I'd like to read through them another time.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I'd like to read through them another time. I don't want to hold this up. So.
Anne, would you like to recheck the motion?
Sure will.
Okay,
Motion to table.
yes.
So I make a motion to table minutes from May 22nd.
A second.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. It's tabled until the next meeting. Reports and communications from mayor and other officers. You want to start down there?
Thank you, Mayor. Reporting to the Environment Committee, the Community and Nature and Harmony applications have been posted on the village website, and it will also be announced this week on the village's official Facebook page. The Village of Homer Glen and the Environment Committee honor people who have demonstrated their commitment to the environment through the creation of a wildlife habitat, restoration, and/or beautification of their property or land within the village or in unincorporated Homer Township, and in the process have significantly contributed to community pride. July 15th is the deadline for nominations. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Squeeze. Mr. Pedino?
So I had my first Environment Committee meeting, Mayor, and everybody. Went very nice. It was nice to meet my colleagues. I also wish to thank our past and present committee members for their dedication and hard work in making this Environment Committee the driving force that it is today. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Trustee Rogers?
No, of course.
Thank you. Marion?
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Trustee Holmes?
No report.
Thank you. Trustee Gray?
Thank you, Mayor. Reporting on behalf of the Community Fest Committee. Homerfest continues to be planned. It is Thursday, June 20th through Sunday, June 23rd. Mega passes are on sale right now at Village Hall. They are $55 in advance, and we did just find out that there are no ride restrictions this year. So Mega passes will include all rides at the fest. So it's a great deal because they're planning on bringing more rides than they have in the previous years. So we're hoping that'll be a great benefit to all residents. Also, just wanted to encourage people to go to homerfest.com, check out our lineup of entertainment. Our entertainment coordinator sitting in the front row there. He's done a great job putting all the bands together. We have, while Mick Jagger canceled out up at Wrigley Field, we have Pop Rocks, a Rolling Stones tribute band playing on Friday night, as well as other great bands. So go to homerfest.com, check it out, and come on up to the fest. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Mine is, Village is currently seeking letters of interest for a vacancy on the Planning Commission. Residents interested in serving on a Planning Commission must submit a letter of interest along with a resume addressed to the village manager, Gary Friday. Village of Homer Glen, 14240 West 151st Street, Homer Glen, Illinois, 60491, or email at kfriday@homerglenil.org. Second, it seems like the weather is going to start getting a little better. I hope I don't jinx it. But if we could keep the speeds down so we don't have any of our children hurt. And the police are willing and able to give you a ticket if you want to do what you shouldn't be doing. With that, we'll go to the village clerk.
The only thing that I have is after reviewing the last two meetings on the recordings, I asked that if all the trustees and the mayor, or if anybody is speaking, if they can speak directly into the mic, and only one at a time, because it is very hard to hear and to document what everyone says when multiple people are talking. So if we could just take turns, that would be greatly appreciated. That's all.
Thank you. Village attorney.
No report.
Thank
Thank you. Public safety officials.
Just a real quick one, Mayor. Thank you for the reminder on speeds. And also another reminder, keep your vehicles locked. It's still, any car burglaries that we get are unlocked vehicles. They're not breaking into them per se, and Jimmy unlocks and that kind of stuff. So, and an explanation on the beard, 99% of the time we are clean shaven with the Sheriff's Department following policy. But for the month of June and at different points throughout the year, if we take part in a fundraiser, we can grow a beard for a month and give the razor a break. This month it's for United Way of Will County. So if you see guys looking like this, they're not violating policy, they're taking part in a fundraiser. That's my report.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
Administrative analyst.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Reporting on behalf of the Active Corps progress. Unfortunately, we have not yet begun paving the paths or courts due to the moisture. We hope that we will have some progress on that front soon. Staff has begun planning some options for grand opening festivities, and also the disc golf baskets are currently en route from California. So those should be getting installed this summer.
Good. Anything else?
That's it.
Village manager.
Mayor and the board, I just wanted to remind you that the June 12th board meeting, that regular scheduled board meeting will be canceled since we're meeting tonight. Our next meeting will be on the June 26th, and also on that evening from 5 to 7 p.m. in our community room, we're going to be hosting an open house for our comp plan. Our consultant team will be here to meet with the residents and get input from our community from 5 to 7 on that same night. So hopefully you all will be able to attend that as well. That's all I have.
Thank you. Next will be public comment. Do we have anything on the list? Thanks, Jimmy. Well, you knew you were first to the list, Ken, so you got the floor.
Mayor, you get members of the Homer Trustees. It's come to my attention that tonight there's a consideration for approval for a sports facility advisory to conduct a study for the development of a sports complex. It costs of approximately $35,000. My question is, we've been approaching the board asking for help for sponsorship. We are told that you cannot do that. You cannot sponsor us, you cannot help us. But yet, you're gonna spend $35,000 on taxpayer money for a sports complex. I don't understand that.
Well, I'll give you an answer if you want an answer right now.
Could you just give me a few minutes?
Sure.
I understand I got 3 minutes, so I'm gonna try to squeeze this in. I was here at the March 20th budget meeting, and I believe it was Trustee Varian went over some numbers with the park districts around us. I believe he said, I don't know if these are exact, but Orland Park around $6 million that they spend on their park district.
I don't recall the exact numbers of everyone I went through, but I can get you the list.
Yeah, I think it was Lockport, $2 million, and Lamont like $3 million, okay? We, in Homer, we spend how much? 0? For the sports in this community.
You mean as, my point at that budget meeting was in comparison to the towns around us that have park districts.
Exactly.
And as I went through those budgets and
Right.
revenue sources, my point in all of that was that we are doing that portion of the recreational amenities in the village out of our budget without those things. So comparatively, was the point of all of that we're funding those things out of our budget to the tune of Heritage Park and all the other.
But as far
various
as if youth want to participate in recreational basketball, football, cheerleading, soccer, village has no money on the table, correct? Would I be correct in saying that?
I'll wait till you're done, then I'll fill you in.
Okay, all right. So, with that being said, how much do you think the sports groups, not only HAC, but Stallions, soccer, how much do you think they save the village as far as funding? You don't need fields, you don't need insurance. They take care of the uniforms, administration. You know, we're all 503c charities, we don't get paid. Would 500,000 be a fair estimate?
I don't know that number, but certainly I agree with the point.
Anyone on the board, would that be a fair estimate?
Don't know, we don't do it. And are you done, or?
No.
Okay.
If you give me a few more minutes. So I'm just, the reason I'm asking is if we provide a service, I'm just curious why we can't get any help, whether sponsorship, any type of help, okay? Trustee Holtz, I know you're on Facebook a lot. If someone were to come up to you and say, I'm interested in moving to Homer, my kids are interested in, let's say, baseball, basketball, cheerleading, and soccer. Do you have anything to provide? What would your answer be?
We don't have a park district, we don't offer those services. Private clubs offer those services, but you have to pay a fee.
Right. Would you tell them to go to Orland or Lamont or Lockport or?
I would tell them to gather the information and make their own decision.
So
Unfortunately.
would you tell them who the clubs were?
Oh, of course. I mean, I think we all kind of inherited that situation. We don't necessarily like it.
So, and that's why I'm asking, because we do provide a service. We offer opportunity. Some may not like the opportunity, whether it's HAC, the Stallions, or soccer. But we offer that opportunity. Child can't make a full-time team somewhere, they come play recreational baseball here. Recreational is offered on football, and I believe soccer as well. I think we've been very good neighbors to you guys. We've always shut down for Homer Fest. Fest has been going for how many years? 6 years? 5 years? Has it been that long? Every year we shut down Thursday, Friday. We lend our equipment, and I don't understand why we can't get any support. You know, it's come down to, at the budget meeting, we got $75,000 budget for trees, but yet we don't have a budget for the youth in this community. I don't understand it. I mean, does the village offer any programs for the youth in this community? The sports groups do. And like I said, people may not like it, but we do offer that opportunity. You know, I know several of you, you know, Mayor, your son came through the program, Trustee Holtz, your kids played, I think, Trustee Berry and your kids were involved for a while. What do we have to do to get help?
I'm just waiting for you to tell me that you're done, then I'll answer all your questions.
So, yeah, I'm just up here asking. I am the sponsorship coordinator for HAC. You know, I've been involved in sports here in Homer Glen for 15 years. I've been here 18 years. I've been on the board 7 years, and I don't even have a kid in sports. All my kids are pretty much grown up. But I stay on the board because I believe in it, and I like this community. You know, I'm looking to retire here, but I just think that the clubs need help, and whether you give all three of us 5,000, whatever that number is, you know, if we're saving the village money, I don't understand why we can't get something back. You know, and I don't think we're asking for a lot. So, Mayor, or any of the trustees, if you have any comments, I'd love to hear them.
Well, I'll make them right now. First, I don't disagree with you. I know what you guys do, and I thank God every day that you guys are doing it. Where we have issues, we don't own their property. That's township's property. I can't go over and do anything over there without them giving me the okay for it. And I have talked to them multiple times, but they don't want us to start getting into their business, and that's their business over there.
But Mayor, if I could,
let me finish now. So what we've been trying to do is to accomplish what you're looking for with a complex, because now it's ours. It belongs to the village, it belongs to the residents here. We have a gentleman right behind you that's going to give a nice presentation. He can explain every single solitary thing that you just asked. And I think it'll make you feel a lot better. But you know what, Ken, that would be like me coming over to your house and saying, I don't like the tree, let me take the tree down, I'm going to put this over here. I can't do that with township property. That's theirs. So we are going to try, and if you listen to what he's going to explain to you tonight, it'll make a lot of sense to you. The reason it's taken so long is we want to make sure before I spend, and this board decides to spend any money on anything, that it's going to work. So it has taken a lot longer than what I wanted, but at the end of the day, I would rather have all the information that I need to make sure that whatever decision we do decide is the right one for the village and for the township. We plan on letting everyone that lives around here use it. It's not just for, you know, basically over where you guys are playing right now, it's for you. I don't know if there's a lot of other teams that play, but besides
but
HAC.
we also spend a lot of money on those fields.
And again, I don't disagree,
Residency
but
requirements.
I can't take money from my residents' pockets
So,
and spend it somewhere else.
and don't forget, we also offer basketball and volleyball. I'm just not talking about the complex.
Okay.
I'm talking about,
What do you do that's on our property? And where can you go on
We
our
don't-
property to do it except for the parks that might have?
we don't use your property, we use the township property.
Exactly, that's what I'm
Okay,
trying
but
to
we're
explain.
offering a service to the village, to the youth of Homer Glen.
And don't you collect from the parents when they go to play on the teams?
Yeah, but we would collect money too if we had park district, correct? They wouldn't play for free.
All right, but people pay for a park district, there's a tax on park
Yeah,
district.
they pay for, they pay the tax, and then they also, I don't know if anyone plays in Lockport or Orland, you're charged just as much as you are by us, and they're not getting taxed on it.
But they play in the township. They don't play here because we don't have it. We're putting a park up there for all the residents and whoever else wants to use it. This is.
They could use the fields from up till 4 o'clock. That's why we can't tarp the fields. We're asked all the time, when we have a tournament, why can't you tarp the fields? The township won't let us. There's certain things we can't do either because we are still a guest on their property.
All right, but you just said the key word, their property.
Yes,
Not
it's
your
not.
property, it's not my
Absolutely.
property.
I never said it was ours. And I'm asking, like I said, you know, we're more recognized for baseball, but we also have a basketball program. We also have a volleyball program. At one time, we had a golf program that was here. So we do offer to the community.
But everything that you, everything you mentioned, someone else owns. It's not us. I don't have control over everybody that's in this village to do what I say. Never have. That's why we are working for the sports complex now to make sure it can happen.
But if it's privatized, isn't there
It's
the
going to be
investors
open
to
to the
decide who is allowed on there? Right here in Bourbon 8.
Kevin, the best thing I would say that you could do right now is just take a deep breath, grab a seat, wait till we get through the meeting and we have this information put before us on the complex, and I think it'll satisfy everything you're looking for.
Okay. Any trustees have any comments?
What's the question?
I'm asking you to clarify, are you requesting the village give direct donations to the clubs?
Yes.
Not necessarily spending money
Yes.
specifically towards a property that belongs to someone?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Next would be grand jurors.
Thank you. I have here a list from the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency. It's a notification that Waste Management has requested a permit to virtually double the size of their landfill on Laraway Road. A couple of years ago, a lot of the environmental groups in the area here put a lot of pressure on Will County Board to pass a piece of legislation that said there would be no more new landfills. They decided to skirt that. Instead of having a new one, they're now doubling the size of the one that they had. Waiting for Steve Ballot to say where he's going to do one way or the other on this, or where the board is actually standing on this. So my question is since I am a landowner that has a well on my particular property, along with all the other people in this area that do have wells, we have great concerns over what landfills leak. And they do leak. They leak a lot. The other side of the coin is that the care group have been trying to have discussions with Waste Management about the facility there for them to expand and actually do more with regards to recycling. They have virtually stonewalled them and just about anybody else, including the Sierra Club. To them, their business plan is a lot simpler. Just keep burying the stuff. I would like to know if the board knows of this and where the board would feel that they would stand on something like that if they were asked to weigh in on whether they want to see expansion of landfills or try to do more with regards to recycling. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's it for public comment. Randy, I'll have someone look into this and we'll be back to you and let you know. All right. Next is a consent agenda. I'm going to read off 7 different things. It's all voted on at once. If anyone has a question or anything here, we can break it out and discuss it in open. So, the matters listed under the consent agreement are considered routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. Is there a motion to approve the following items? 1, the accounts payable for the period of May 24th, 2019 through June 6th, 2019 in the amount of $459,660.33. 2, the April 2019 Mahoney, Silverman and Cross LLC legal bills in the amount of $12,148.75. Ordinance number 19-024, an ordinance declaring surplus property and authorizing its sale. Number 4, pay estimate number 8 from Integral Construction, Inc. for the active court project at Heritage Park in the amount of $155,762. Number 5, pay estimate number 8 from Austin Tyler Construction, Inc. for the Fittiman Creek Sanitary Sewer Project in the amount of $153,080.08. Number 6, change order number 7 from Austin Tyler Construction, Inc. for the Fittiman Creek Sanitary Sewer Project as a deduction in the amount of $68,005.08. And number 7, to authorize the distribution of a request of proposals for information for technology managed systems.
So moved.
Trustee Gray,
Second.
Trustee Rogers, discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Holtz? Aye. Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Suisse?
Aye.
Trustee Burien?
Aye.
Trustee Pasamino?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Legislation and action items. Is there a motion to approve the professional services agreement with Sports Facilities Advisory, LLC, to conduct a Phase 1 feasibility and market study concerning development of a possible sports complex in Homer, Glen in the amount of $35,000 plus a maximum not to exceed $2,500 in travel expenses?
So moved.
Trustee Gray?
Second.
Trustee Filipino. Discussion.
Mayor, I'd just like to clarify that what we've spoken about earlier, that really, in essence, even though we're going to pay the $35,000 million for half of this, on the initial...
It's actually better than that.
I know, but I mean, on the initial blush, we're only in for half, right?
Correct. What it is it's $35,000 plus $2,500 for travel. The group that we are together with right now is going to pay half of it for right now. So it'll break down by 50% for each of us. After we get everything set, we have another gentleman that would like to get into this. So he agreed to pay, if he joins us, he agreed to pay 1/3 of it. So then it would break down to we pay the third, the sports group paid the third, and then he paid the third.
So approximately our exposure is going to be $12,000 to $13,000, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would just like to say a couple things. I've been quoted and misquoted on social media regarding this subject, and never accurately. So, since I can speak for myself now, do I think the concept is a economic generator? Yes. Do I think it would be a financial win for the village? Possibly. I personally have never seen numbers for such a proposal within the village. I saw preliminary numbers for the April 18 proposal that was at the committee of the whole, but that didn't really go anywhere. So I don't have an opinion on it one way or another yet, and I would like as much information as possible. So that being said, I have actually followed this organization for a long time, probably almost 2 years, on social media, and I've seen a lot of their projects that they've done, and I think y'all know what you're doing. So I'm excited to see what you bring forth. I still have concerns and questions, and I'm looking forward to see what the study reveals.
Well, on this it says, the proposed scope contract includes Phase 1 of the feasibility study and market analysis for the construction of a regional sports complex in Homer, Glen. The report will include a regional market study and how Homer, Glen would fit within this market area. The consultants will conduct market analysis, local visits to competitors within the market, and development planning session with key stakeholders. A final report based on the research and work will recommend programming, planning, and construction strategies. Specifically, the final report will include right-sized facility program and plan, estimate startup costs and other comparable references projects, summary of the anticipated demographics and sports participation studies, case studies of other facilities and general program and lessons learned, trade area productions by sport program relative to Homer Glen's geographic location, financing strategies and best practices, risk mitigation strategies, estimated review projections, direct and indirect, recommendations for public education and outreach strategies. It is our anticipated the study and report will be completed within 6 to 8 weeks. Mr. Dev Patnick, founder of and CEO of Sports Facilities Advisory, is here to provide an overview of the sports tourism industry and answer any questions regarding the proposal. So you will get all your answers. Figures, I don't think you're going to get figures yet because they have to find out if this is feasible to do first, and then they'll get the answers for the rest of it. But those are questions that we can ask Deb when he finishes up what he's got.
Mayor, can I make a comment as well, so that they understand? This is according to what it says here too, it's a go, no-go point during phase 1, which means after SFA's insights and recommendations and all the information, you still have the option to move forward, to sit back and, you know, it's not just because we're moving forward, it's not just in one direction.
Correct. What this is basically is, for years we've been talking about this and we never had any answers because we didn't have what we needed information-wise to see if this was something that is actually feasible for the village. It's going to be a private-public situation, so you are going to have people that are taking money out of their pocket to invest, and we're looking for to see if it's worth us to invest in it, buy the property. We're not here to start a business and run a business. We're here to make it to where there is more income coming in for the village. We don't survive on property tax because we don't have any. And sales tax is something that we rely on. It's not like we're breaking into seams with businesses or people coming to spend money here. This is our way of getting people to come here and be able to get what we're looking for in the village. We are looking for more income. We're looking for restaurants. We're looking for hotels. There's no hotel there. We would like more retail. We don't have people. The retail's not going to come. The hotels won't come. So this is an option to where we can get people from all over coming out to enjoy this. So I'm going to turn it over to Deb. I want him to be able to explain. So this way, if you have any questions, we can write them down and we'll get them answered for you. If we can't get them answered for you tonight, we'll get them answered for you soon. So Deb, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you.
Mayor, before you want, is that part of the workshop item or is that part of the?
There's no workshop.
Oh, I thought that was a workshop.
No, it's not.
I think there was a workshop listed there. I thought it was going to have workshops.
Okay.
Very good, thank you. And thank you for your comments. As it relates to sport and who's getting access and how public entities... There we go. Thank you. And thanks for having me. And I'm excited that you've approved this step. I think it's important in the journey that you're on and trying to figure out whether something can be real, whether it can be financeable, whether it can meet your community needs and your budget. I think there are real challenges in trying to get a large complex built here. And so what we specialize in is figuring out how and what can be done, what the potential funding strategies are that actually meet our community's objectives. By saying that, to your point, if you build something that's totally driven by private sector that has absolutely no requirement from the public sector for its citizens to get access, yet the public sector is putting land or other resources, that's not a fair trade. When public dollars are put to use, you have to have access for your citizens. It has to improve the quality of life for your citizens. Our mission is to improve the health and the economic vitality of the communities we serve. It's not to write documents. We do that through sport. We're 500 full-time people. I'm pleased and proud to be the founder. I founded SFA in 2003, so we're 16 years in. We're 500 full-time people without a drop of debt, and we're growing very rapidly, and that's because a lot of communities are faced with the questions you are. You see other people developing these big complexes, and you travel around with your kids, and you say, why can't we have that in Homer Glen? And you see the economic engine that some of these facilities create. On the surface, they all look really good. But as you get behind the scenes, some of these projects that were improperly financed or that had over-ambitious objectives have been detrimental to the communities they've been in, financially. And so there's real risk in this. So we take a very conservative look at this. But I'll show you a quick video, and then I want to tell you about us, because to the point that you're making, a facility, if properly planned and properly financed and properly organized, so that your citizens get access and the private sector can take responsibility in various ways, can be transformational. And I'll talk about those transformations. I'll talk about what happens for kids who get to play sport. I'll talk about the sports tourism industry. So as I introduce us, I'm also going to do a little education session with you. And then in a few minutes, we'll get to whatever Q&A you might have as it relates to our process. Okay?
No gym.
You mind starting that
no
again?
Pool, no courts. Where we play, there was once nothing. No gym, no pool, no courts, no track. Nowhere to leave our other lives at the door. No way to test ourselves, dive, dare, work, push, or grind. Just like us, this place was built from the ground up. It's our proving grounds, battlefield, sanctuary, where we want to be, where we're meant to be. Sports facility, they say. What do we say? It's so much more, because here we become faster, stronger, and more determined. On the courts and off, when you build this place, you build us. It begins with a concept, becomes concrete with a plan. And the plan starts here.
All right, so that's what everybody hopes. Everybody hopes you get to a place where you say we found something that can be built, that's financeable, we have the right partners, we have the right public-private mix, and because of that, we've created a special place. That's what everybody hopes, including us. There's no question we look for that opportunity. I shared with you our mission is to improve the health and economic vitality of the communities that we serve. Let me tell you a little bit more about us if I can. I founded SFA in 2003. What we do, SFA, is plan and figure out the financing strategies for youth and amateur and community-based sports. That's all we care about. If it's not good for kids and families, we have no interest in it. If it's a spectator-driven facility where most of it's going to be sold, we get stadium calls every week, we send it somewhere else. That's not our interest in selling sweet sales. Our interest is in what's good for kids and communities. We have lots of reason for that. You can research me and other people in our firm. We have personal stories about it, but we believe in the power of sport to improve community. We've also had a devastating loss in who's getting access to sport on a national level. So if you see me on HBO Real Sports, that's what I'm talking about. And it's all I'm talking about. We are absolutely the loudest voice on these issues. If you look at what happens to kids who play sport in this graphic that you can look at in depth on your own, kids who play sport and are active are 1/10 as likely to be obese, up to 40% higher test scores, less smoking, drug use, and risky behavior, 15% more likely to go to college, and on and on. And to your point, the more kids that get to play sport, organized by local groups, the better it is. Lowest income kids who aren't getting access to sport are the ones we all need to play sport, because it prevents so many other social issues. You'd have to look at this graphic to understand it, but what's happened in sport for a lot of us, we grew up in a society where you could go play, and it was publicly funded or there were public funds for it. That has changed. In No Child Left Behind, it was an unintended consequence, but we systematically reduced the number of hours of activity by reducing budgets for physical education, so that today we only have 3 states in the union that mandate physical education, and the total hours of activity for our kids have been reduced massively as a result of that single bill. The result of that is we went from an 18% or 13% childhood obesity rate to almost 18%, almost overnight when that bill passed. We just said less activity. Sit in your desks, and core curriculum. And there's nothing wrong with that except that we lost a massive amount of our health equity. Fast forward, and we're now at 38% of our kids are obese. And that's because when Parks and Recreation budgets were decimated in 2008, they've been among the slowest budgets to rebound. And no one around this table can justify Parks and Recs in your budget. None of you could stand up and fight for a robust Parks and Recs budget, certainly not with your tax structure, but it would be a very difficult thing to make happen given all of the other responsibilities you have as a government entity. I'll talk a little bit about, we're a founding member of the Aspen Institute Project Play 2020. You can see the brands for our partners there. It's everybody from the Center for Disease Control and the Aspen Institute and the United States Olympic Committee to Amazon, ESPN, NHL, NBA, Dick's, Target, so on and so forth. That collection, we meet monthly to address these issues of who's getting access to sport. And at the grassroots level, there's no one who's more significant than we are. We created our management entity in response to demand from our clients. So the U.S. Park Service was our first client. They said, great plan, can you make it so? And we sort of grew from there. That was in 2006. It was mentioned earlier, we're the only strategic partner to the International City Managers Association in the sport and recreation space. That means of the 9,000 members of that organization, we're the go-to resource. We host webinars and other issues related to parks and recreation and sport tourism. Lots of media around youth sports, and you'll find us in it all the time, regularly. Wall Street Journal just a few weeks ago. It's again because we're trying to lead this conversation and make sure that we're addressing these issues and coming up with financing solutions that address these issues. A few more points about us. We are the kind of trusted financial system, SFA is. So SFA is producing the first ever calculators that assess the value of a park for every park in the state of Florida through FRPA. I went to them and proposed this. There are very reliable now value calculators related to commercial and real estate property values in close adjacency to a park. And think about this, if you develop a sports complex out there, what happens to the value of the land directly adjacent to the sports complex, right? But there are health impacts, there are crime rates, so we've gathered a group, including the CDC and others, to build out the algorithms so that any park can be analyzed and its value assessed. It's the first tool of its kind. Actually the state of Illinois has already asked us if we could come here, the same with Colorado. In Michigan, we did the economic impact calculators for sport tourism for the entire state through Pure Michigan. So we really are a trusted resource when it comes to accurate financial forecasting and modeling as it relates to sport and recreation and parks and recs. Let me just get to our facilities. Everything you might imagine, from these big mixed-use developments, which we see a lot of now. We have an $800 million development going into Hutto, Texas, a town of 30,000 people. Hutto's 30 minutes from the Austin airport, though. So there's all of this growth that Austin is pushing. There's real estate values. It's a unique destination. They have state incentive and all kinds of other money that has been used to attract the private sector to them. We did the National Stadium Bahamas, all kinds of other health and recreation assets. Myrtle Beach Sports Center, this facility was built for $13 million, but we produced $31 million in tourism spend in the first year of operation. All of these are reports that as the mayor, and I think several of you have been interviewing us and scrutinizing us, you know you can pick up the phone and call another mayor, another city manager, and really talk about real numbers and reports from them, not us. I'm reporting on them. So we've been involved in all kinds of things, including things locally here. In the last 6 months, we've done more than 6 studies within 100 miles of here. And then everything from an action sports perspective, you can imagine. What we're tasked to do in this scope is help you figure out whether there is a realistic development plan and operating plan that includes private sector investment that can help you increase the total number of sports assets available. There's been a lot of talk about a large sports tourism venue. For those who don't know, sports tourism, youth sports tourism in particular, so that is overnight stays created by kids and their parents and their coaches and others related specifically to tournaments. It's the fastest growing segment of the travel industry, and it has been for 6 years, and it's the only segment to never decline in a single quarter throughout the recession. So hoteliers and everyone else in the travel industry likes it. Mixed-use developers like it because you can create a destination and then surround it with other real estate developments, and those real estate developments can, in some cases, create enough tax revenue. But all of that has to be evaluated and considered against what is, first and foremost, what's happening here. So we'll come into the marketplace, we'll be meeting with stakeholder groups, we'll certainly be meeting with you and with everybody else who has an interest in sport, and our job is to listen. And then to come back to you with what we think is real and conservative. Out of 120 studies in a year, 8 of them will actually come out of the ground. So we're going to be very conservative. And when I say 8 of them come out of the ground, that's within about a 2-year time frame. Because some of them need to be built in phases. Some of these are big developments. Sometimes you end up in something that you think is 24 months. It's actually 48 months until you're open, right? But if there's a no to be found, we're going to find it. And if there's a solution around that, we're going to find it. That's what we're here to do. Our first report to you will give you a construction, it'll tell you what we think a reasonable program plan for sport and recreation is. It'll tell you whether we think you need to consider mixed-use development in some way. It'll tell you what the square footages of the sports components would be. It'll tell you how much parking you need, and it'll give you an estimated cost for the same. There's nothing that we will recommend to you that doesn't already exist. We're not creating brand new stuff. We are taking proven models, especially when we're talking about taxpayer dollar. We're taking proven models from other places, and we're looking at whether or not the ingredients are here for you to apply a bunch of proven models. They're community-based, so they have to, if you build a facility and shut out all your local users, first, it won't work, it won't pass. But secondly, that's not in line with the intent of this. So in all of our forecasting and modeling, we're considering who are the local users, what's the inventory that needs to be made available. And that's the time to be discussing, well, what happens if we put public sector dollar into this, what do we expect? And that's where we've created really good models. Models that respond to the needs that I talked to you earlier, but that are still financeable. There's nobody else who cares about it in the way that we do. I can tell you that's at the core of what you're going to get from our team is we're really trying to figure out how do we get you something that can really work. And you already have some private sector interest in development on the site, so we're going to scrutinize that as well and make sure that whatever their concept or their plan is realistic. And we might be behind the scenes, but we might coach them to change or alter some of their thinking because a lot of these things look great, but that doesn't mean they're performing that well, right? Ours all perform. Every single facility we've ever brought out of the ground, and you all have researched us, is outperforming its original forecast by more than 20%. Every single one of them, and in some cases much more than that. So even if we do give you a financial forecast, I can assure you that it'll be here, and when you say, well, what are the comparables, and when financing part is in, we're going to show you comparables to it that are performing much better. We'll show you the cash flow from those, and the economic impact, and all that sort of thing. So that's what we're here to do. It's just this first phase. When we deliver this to you, it's going to express what we heard matters to you as a community. It's going to express what we heard is the financial reality of your community. It's going to be limited by what we think the competition in the region is, because we do an analysis that looks at sports participation rates and drive times and demographic and a whole lot of things. And those algorithms feed into this, and it comes together and says, okay, generally speaking, you're probably well qualified for this, that, and the other. But when we give that to you, you're then going to hear our report, you'll look at our research, we'll walk you through all of that. And that's part of what that travel budget's for. It's for us to come up and do that market research, but then come back and formally present to you what our findings are. And we'll have a few sessions in that. But when we give that to you, you'll then be in a position to say, okay, does it make, or we'll tell you whether we think it makes sense to then move into a true financial forecasting, where you're looking at cash flows and economic impact and traffic into the facility and all those things, because those things will then further impact both development costs, things like ingress and egress, but those will be the data points that will drive whether or not we think we could or you could attract a hotelier and a finance partner to the project, because they're going to want to look at traffic. So in that phase 2, it'll be down to the granularity. It'll be, how many rolls of toilet paper, literally. It'll be everything one of the most comprehensive financial forecasts you would ever have. But we only get there if what we review and look at suggests that it's really worth taking that next step. If it's not, we want to move on. You know, we want to see whether or not there's something to help, that can actually help kids get to play sport and help you look at that. If it's not, we'll move right along. We'll have 50 communities call our office this week, more than we can handle. What the reason we're here is because I think your destination is very well suited to something special. You've got some private sector interest, you have some land, you have the ingredients lined up on the, you know, in the kitchen to maybe make a bowl of soup. There's still a lot of work to do around financing them. I think if there's one challenge you're faced with, it's, you know, what's realistic to get financed? And that's what we'll look at. That's part of what we'll look at. Okay? I think I've said a lot. What questions can I answer for you?
I'd like to ask you, you said that you do approximately 120 studies a year. You do approximately 120 studies a year and about 8 go out and get out of the ground. Is that where you're talking about that they don't go to that next step, where you walk away because the feasibility just is not there?
No, of those 120, if they start with a market opportunity report like you're having, 40 or 50 will go into the next phase, right? And then you end up with these cash flow forecasts and really detailed, and now you end up with something that could actually get done, but for either its operating costs, right? Because now you might have a cash flow forecast that says, we can do this, but it's going to lose $300,000 a year. Well, frankly, that's a community rec center for most of America today, right? If it's going to lose $300,000 a year, but it's going to put $20 million in new spend in their community, then the financial people need to come to the table and see whether or not we can engineer a capital stack that works against that, right? There's a lengthy process to all of this. Once you get to those financial models, now we got to engage, and we can bring Citibank to the room. They'll be the largest convention hotel sports finance group in the world. We can bring all kinds of finance specialists to you who can look at this with you and look at the mix and see whether or not something can be done. That's not our expertise, okay? But as a result, if you take that step and you take the length of that, you take the politics involved with that and the community engagement, of those, 30 or 40 that go to the next step, about 8 are really going to that year full on progress and get through council and get to the point and say, okay, this is approved and move to the next step. It might be another 5 the next year, but they do fall off. And this is what's good about where you are. You could talk about this for the next 12 years. That's what a lot of communities do. This study will help all of you make good decisions about whether it's realistic, whether you should stay in the game, keep talking about it, and really put effort in it, or whether it's time to move on to something else. That's what we want to deliver to you in this first phase. And I don't know the answer to it. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think you had some real opportunity, but I really don't know what's going to come of, because we have a lot to listen to.
Questions?
Well, I have a few more, of course, but
No,
I'd like to know, when you engage the community, like this gentleman who spoke earlier, and you look at the community, you see what amenities are available in the community, and as well as I presume you would look outside of Homer Glen as well. You'd look at some of our larger neighboring communities.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that those amenities factor into your kind of overall regional, what's on the ground right now. So when you assess those things, do you take that into account in what you might propose to us to say, you might be more of a destination for, the 5-state region, as opposed, because you have so much already on the ground that's serving the community? Because I think that could become a false economy there, because as we heard earlier, we don't really have that here. It surrounds us, and it's being taken care of at the private level in our community. So just because it's there doesn't necessarily mean it's good or it's wanted, or like Trustee Holtz said, it's legacy. We've inherited a lot of that stuff. So yeah. I'd like to know more about like what weighs in the balance there. How does that?
Yeah, so we're going to do a competition study, and that's going to look at all of the inventory surrounding the marketplace. And we've been in and out of the market so much over the years that we know a lot of that just to start with, or else this would be a much bigger process. We've toured just about every facility you can imagine in the region already. So you don't have to pay us to do any of that. There's nothing in this. But we're going to do a competition study, a competition analysis that's going to take a look at the inventory and also the events that are being held in the region, total events. And you'll see all of this in our market research. And then we're going to make conclusions about what could actually be hosted, how much capacity there is for additional events, and what could actually be hosted on this site. And we'll do that in direct conversation. The difference between us and some others is on the other side, and of all the studies that we do, of those 8 that might go live, 2 or 3 of those will hire us as the management company. Outsourcing management is a decision for down the road, and that is typically done through an RFP and a separate bid process. And if SFM would be one of the suitors to potentially manage that, that's for a later conversation. But the reason to talk about that is that when we pick up the phone, we're going to talk to rights holders, actual people who have events. And we're going to say, would you come to Homer Glen? If we design X, Y, and Z, and we're going to look at their schedule. We know their schedule because we manage so many of their events, right? And say, what if we did X, Y, and Z? So we're going to have a meaningful, real set of conversations about what's real here. It's not just going to be push-button demographics and we make some conclusions. Did that respond to the question about the competition?
Yeah, like I said, I just don't want to see anything that's outside of our borders kind of factoring in to tip the scales to say that a facility in Homer Glen would be more based on like travel teams coming in and push out the locals, you know, because the locals, while they are currently being served, you know, they're being served, like the gentleman said, by volunteers, by, you know, 503Cs, by, you know, concerned parents and just sports enthusiasts. So I want to make sure that doesn't go against them. You know?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So do we want to make sure. First of all, let's say it was the tournament-only facility. Let's just say heard communities say, we just want to build a tournament-only facility. So you want to lock the gates Monday to Friday, just about every week of the year? Every time the kids are out of school is the only time you can have tournaments, right? You want people coming from the outside to use these beautiful fields, but you want your own kids to be sitting there. That doesn't work. So we have to create enough inventory for both, which is what's happening. It's getting these facilities, turning these facilities into big complexes. You say, okay, we have to have a dedicated inventory for our uses. But Monday to Friday, there's so much inventory in these facilities. And it's about engaging all the partners. That's the only way to make these things work. Socially as well. There's no way the community is going to buy off on you building a convention center of sports. You know.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else I can answer?
Just a quick question. So, are you familiar with C.H. Johnson?
Yeah.
Okay. Reputable company?
Yeah, we know them well.
Okay. What do you, we've gone through a similar process to this. I'm sure you're aware of that, right? It's 2016, 2017. I think what I'm hearing here on phase 1, feasibility, market analysis, competition, I feel like we've done that, right? And we've spent the money, the taxpayer dollars, to do that with a private partner. And so, and we've got lots of that, of the surrounding inventory, and we've been down this road before.
Yeah.
What's different about this versus the C.H. Johnson feasibility study?
If you call Charlie, and Charlie and I know one another, we're friends, we were all together not too long ago. If you call them and say, what's the difference? What we do is we produce something that is based on actual real-world comparables. So the comparables in that study, as an example, may or may not be performing well behind the scenes. They look like a successful facility, but they may not be actually performing. What we're going to do is come back to you with a financial picture that at every stage, whether it's construction startup costs, the program plan, and what the overall development plan is, or it's in the performa, that is designed for financial institutions to value.
And that's in phase 1 of this study?
It's phase 2 is the performa, but even what we're writing in phase 1 is designed to support that. So everything we do is designed to support that financing.
And with that, we got to that level too. We had performa.
Yeah.
We had the 40% usage, the 75% usage. And so I think that's the biggest thing for me, is just figuring out what's different this time. Obviously, you guys are one of the best in the industry and do a ton of work. And so I assume there's part of the answer is that, and you're being diplomatic about it. I'm trying to figure out, when we spend more taxpayer dollars, to do what I think is going to look very similar to what, have you seen the
We haven't seen this study yet.
Yeah, I mean, my only fear in this is we spend additional money, and on a phase 1, market analysis and competition study, we get back a very similar document to what we already have from 2 years ago.
Yeah, without having seen it, here's what I'll say.
But you're familiar with the work, right?
Very familiar. But if you said, okay, you called them up and said, show me what's been built in the last 5 years. That's the difference. What we do is create a path to getting things financed that's realistic. We're more conservative than Charlie Johnson's firm is, for sure. We're less hopeful, I'll say. But because of that, we end up finding real financing solutions. I haven't seen their study, and I wasn't part of that. And I think it's a valid concern. I think when we come into market, first of all, we're going to read and review that study as part of our early due diligence. But when we come into market with you, and you have the chance to meet with our team, have that conversation with them. What I think you need is, I think, what we have to offer. There's no one who's producing more actual real projects than us, even though I said it's 120, at least 8. I mean, if you go to any of the trade magazines, you go to our sfmnetwork.com, all of those facilities, we're just built to really figure out how to get stuff done if it can, right? So.
Yeah, and I understand that. And if I was a private sector investor, I think that would appeal to me, saying we get these projects done and built more than anyone else. For me, I'm looking for that honest assessment.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's not about, hey, who's best at getting them done. It's looking at all the parameters and all the things that we're dealing with. And we're unique, as Ken said earlier, because of some of that. Most towns that in all the research, and the mayor and I have been part of meetings for years on this, years. And I still don't think I'm close to an expert in this, but most of the towns that have explored opportunities like this have some of that, going back to the original park district, have some of that stuff already built out.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's been one of the challenges for us, is to Trustee Gray's point, when you say you've got private athletic groups that have been our park district in many ways for decades now. And luckily, I think a component that's left out is the schools and our school districts that support many of the facilities that other town park districts typically have. But for our private groups who have to beg, steal, and borrow to get amenities that are comparable at best to towns around us, to then put in a facility across the street that's the best turf, everything that to attract some of those tournaments, and what these are the discussions we've been having for years, and to say, sorry guys, but the local kids, right, unless you're in a tournament or on a travel team, and that's been some of the challenges we've had of why this has been just a discussion and never anything further than that. So it does seem to me there is additional private interest that we didn't have 2 or 3 years ago. I'm glad that this is I would say potential, this hasn't passed, but a potential that is again shared with private partners, right? So it's not just the village bearing the cost on this. And I'd say, in my mind, that's the one thing that's different, is there seems to be serious discussions from private investors, but the devil's in the details, and so.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and that's part of the reason, as I said, that's one of the ingredients you have that otherwise I think you'd say, well, if this is to be fully publicly funded, I don't know how you make that happen. You just don't have the budget capacity for that. To your point, and then I'll say this, it's really common for us to end up doing the second or third study. It's really common for communities to go out and do what you've done, have early stage conversations and be less ready then, hire somebody, have a study, and then come back to us a few years later and say, okay, that didn't get us there, and then for us to come in and find solutions. So,
can you give me the numbers one more time on that 120? I know you referenced them, Trustee Gray. On the 120 a year, how many never make it to that phase 2?
Yeah. So, well, what I was saying is that 120 studies in a year, if you do that market analysis, 40 or 50 of those will go to phase 2. Okay. So a bit more than half, we're saying at phase 1. It's either too big or there's a delay. It could be that they say, okay, this is really good. We know what it is we want to do. We now need to get the hospital and some other partners to the table. And so they might spend 3 or 4 or 5 months, but we don't go to phase 2 in that year. Okay, we might go to it in year 2. And then of those 40 or 50, only about 8 of them are going to get to the point within a 12-month cycle where everybody goes, great, it's voted on, you've actually got everything moving to really begin a development cycle. And that's because sometimes it takes longer than that.
What's after phase 2?
What's that?
What's after phase 2?
You have a road ahead of you. You have civil engineering and other expense. You have architecture and design, whether that's shared with the private sector. Your phase 2 after phase 2 from us, if you want us involved, is to help you figure out the financing. Is to bring the right partners to the table, get all of those people in the room. That can be done on a very, very low cost with an incentive, so you're only paying out money in the event that you actually get financed. But that's what it would be.
What's the cost of phase 2?
You're phased, it's TBD because I don't know the program plan. What's typical of a phase 2 after something like this with a sports tourism, multi-asset component mixed use is going to be somewhere in the $35,000 to $50,000 range. So, but this is any way you cut it. If you said go to communities and get a facility actually built, this is the staircase. You get third-party analysis that has credibility in the marketplace. You evaluate what your program plan is and see if that really is tolerable to your community as something that you want. You look at those comparables. You could get our market opportunity report and say, great, we're going to get in vans and go tour some of these other facilities and really understand this. If you're not in a position to understand what it is we're talking about, then we'll help you get educated, right? But then phase 2 for us would be producing cash flow forecasts. How's it actually going to cash flow? Working with the private sector and other partners to figure out how does this thing really work. As your advisor also, what should the rent or lease or tenant payments be, or what is the structure of that relationship, so we'll help you in that
Pro
regard.
Farmers part of phase 2?
That's right, yeah.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to ask a question. So the proposal or former paperwork that y'all reviewed in April of 18, that was for a 40 acre? Right?
No. Originally, we were looking at 50 or 100 acre.
That's what they came back with as a recommendation, start
40
small.
acre?
Yeah.
I just wanted to precise.
And this actually comes back starting small. It makes sense that we were thinking about a 400 acre piece to do it.
Well, we don't know what this comes back is.
We don't, but it's not going to be built. It'll start off much smaller.
But I mean, that's part of this, what you're going to do is make a recommendation on what type of
That's right.
facility would
What type of field, how big, parking spaces, down to the detail. In this first report, you'll get a breakdown in a matrix of what square footage for the lobby if there was an indoor building, or what amenities if it's an outdoor complex. That'll all be detailed for you and what we believe is worth pursuing. And if you think there's a phase 1, phase 2, if we think that all of this could happen, you have a market opportunity for all of it, but we would look at what phasing is, then we'll analyze that in the financial model. And you're going to do what is most productive first, right? What drives either the most traffic, so you get the hotel bed tax or the hotel tax or whatever that might be. So there's pieces that have to be kind of put into place if we're going to solve the financing puzzle. I do believe that we might identify a whole lot of things that could be done, but it would be a multi-phase approach. And I do believe with your town budget that there's just no other way for it to be.
Thank you.
Yeah.
In your experience, multi-phase approach been the majority of projects, or are people taking the biggest bite of the apple all at once?
What we end up doing, most people can't handle the carrying cost for additional land to sit on it, right? Most entities want to activate that land. So almost everything we're doing now has a modular component where, like we might open an event center and make sure that this acreage just outside is left open and have this wall be something that can be opened up, a stage can be placed, so you have indoor and outdoor seating. But we're not actually ready to spend the money on the indoor and outdoor seating or the amphitheater. Does that make sense? So there's often some modularity that allows you to improve the facility. I think in your case, especially because you're going to need private sector development, you still have to do something fairly significant in order to attract that additional private sector development. You can't just build 4 fields and say, okay, you know, we're going to get private sector money. You won't. You'd be paying for those 4 fields. So there's this balance between scale and, you know, right size. What I don't think you should do is shoot for the moon. People call me all the time and say, we're going to do the biggest. It's the worst thing you can do, is try to be the biggest. It has to be right sized to your market, your community. There's no need to be the biggest. It will not help you win to be the biggest.
Just a question on the breakdown of expense, not necessarily for him. When we say that the total that we're agreeing to tonight is $35,000, but we're also saying that's the UDI, right?
Yes.
Okay. We have commitments. We have commitments on that.
Yes.
And so, but it's our contract, right? At the end of the day, that this is going to be us responsible for the $35,000.
Well, we'll get
Yeah, the contract is between the village and SFA.
So how's that portion going to work? Are we being reimbursed?
correct. And Mark's in the audience, so we can have you talk to him too.
Are we, but, so there's a verbal commitment right now? There's nothing in writing?
No.
And there's the potential of a third? So we don't know if this is 17,500 for us, or if this is maybe 3 ways yet?
It's definitely 17.5 for us right now. As soon as we got done with this, because he came in late on wanting to be involved in it, he's going to have to jump in with us to pay 1/3 of whatever the total is.
But that's a may or may not like it?
Well, until we get a chance to talk to him, because we got to get a breakdown of what we're going to do. Because at first, he wasn't going to be involved in this. They had another person that was going to be in the hockey end of it out of the group. So then it would be 50-50, and it wouldn't have gone any further than that. Now we have someone that's outside the group that wants to own it. So there would be no output on village's end at all on his property or his building. He wants to.
All potentially after this, right? But for this $35,000.
Right now it's between two of us, so most it could be is 17,500.
And what timeline before we have something in writing on that agreement for us to be, that we're going to be reimbursed? There's going to be a check out to the village is how this works?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's coming out of those pockets when you go back in.
And
It's totally up to you. We can modify our agreement. It doesn't matter to us. We can put 2 parties in the agreement. So that's easy. You're going to execute with us following approval. So if that's what you desire, we could do that. We can amend it.
well, these are the things I leave to our attorneys, right? I mean, I don't pretend to be the lawyer.
That's commonplace for 2 parties to sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
So, and with that being said, Mark, I know you're in the back there. We would just need something that's going to show that you're going to come up together 50% right now. And then as we get a chance to sit down with the gentleman who wants to do the hockey rink, then we'll make sure that he wants to do, if he wants to get involved with it or he doesn't want to get involved with it.
Right. I just, before we discuss that, I kind of wanted to go towards Ken's point. You know, I came to the board about a year ago.
Would you mind stepping up to the mic just
Oh,
for the
sure.
recordings? Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay. Mark Tomzak, Illinois Crush Baseball. So I came to the board last year about this time to discuss this proposal. Obviously something you guys have been working on separately from what we were doing. I was looking at other land opportunities in other communities, and to me, I live in this community. It was one of those things where I felt like this was going to be the perfect place to build it. We got to the point where we were just kind of spinning our wheels. And so obviously I had contacted Dev to put this together and try to get the wheels in motion again. And but to Ken's point is I'm a similar organization to what Homer Athletic Club is. We run a baseball organization within the area. We don't have fields. And as I traveled around the United States with my teams from 8U now through, I have a collegiate team, we still don't have fields. We have to beg, borrow, and steal. So in order to bring this to light, I wanted to make sure that if we were going to do this, it was going to be a community-based, to allow teams within a community, whether it's rec, travel programs and things like that, to use the fields that are here. We don't have a park district, we never did. I knew that when I moved into Homer Glen that we didn't have a park district. And as we had children and realized that if my kids wanted to play softball, baseball, basketball, whatever it was, that we were going to have to do it through organizations like HAC or, Illinois Homer Crush. And those were the cards we were dealt living in this community. So when we started putting this together, and one of the first conversations I had with George was that this has to be for not only to develop travel teams to come in from other areas, other states, but to allow our community, our players in the community to play at this complex. I've, for years and years and years, have gotten the runaround from Homer Township about field usage. 80% of our players within our organization, 14 teams, live in either Lockport, Homer Township, or Homer Glen. They still don't have access to the fields. I've got to go to schools, I've got to beg, borrow, and steal. HAC runs, or at least they manage, the land that's owned by Homer Township, and they do a good job at it. I don't have that opportunity. I've got to go to schools, I've got to talk to superintendents, I've got to do all these things to promise to take care of the fields. We fund everything ourselves. We're the ones who rip up these fields and they make them nice. Reed Elementary School is one of that, Oak Prairie Junior High, even Lockport High School, a freshman field to a certain extent. We put thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars into these fields every year, so our kids that live in this community have a place to play. So basically bringing this to the table, I want this to be for the community, not just to bring in travel teams. Obviously, it's a benefit to Homer Glen to bring in teams from all over the country to come here as a destination to play baseball, to play basketball, and whatever else we have a chance to offer. It's going to benefit our communities, it's going to help drive sales tax. So that's what we're looking at. So again, to Ken's point, and I know they're looking for money, unfortunately, when we moved to Homer Glen, the bottom line is we know the card that we were dealt. We didn't have a park district, so we had to figure out a way to do it. Well, we still don't have a park district, but this gives us an opportunity to take care of our community, take care of our kids who want to play sport in this area. So that's I just wanted to mention that. I mean, I'm in the same boat as HAC. Our organization obviously isn't as big as HAC, but we're thriving, we're growing, and we're bigger and bigger every year. But it's becoming more and more fiscally tough to take care of these fields, and travel baseball is very expensive. So I wanted to mention that. As far as talking about fee splitting, and obviously we haven't entered into a contract, we basically had a verbal agreement. What we were looking at obviously was a three-way split between our group, between hockey and Homer Glen. So that's kind of where we stand on it. So I think we do need to get clarification on hockey that he is coming in as a third partner.
If it's not a third partner, if that hockey component isn't a third partner in the study, are you saying that then you wouldn't?
No, I would have to go back to the group and tell them. I mean, we were under the impression that there was, because we weren't bringing the hockey component to it, that there was an outside entity willing to come in and take over the hockey component. I have no interest in the hockey side of things, so that was going to be a completely separate deal. But obviously, if they say they're not interested in this, then I would bring it back to my group and say that hey, we're going to be in it for half instead of the third. So we just need clarification on that. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I would just say, I think I'd be more comfortable in one of two ways. Either approving this $35,000 pending, that, because there's nothing in writing on that right now. We get a phone call tomorrow and says, no, thank you. Or holding off on this vote until that's, I'm okay with either. It's my opinion. Before we approve $35,000 and we're telling the public we've got partners on this, but those details still need to be tied up.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't want to sit down with hockey guy until we figured out if we were going to be doing it, because there's no sense in wasting someone else's time to it.
Well, and I don't want to slow anything down either. That's why
I think we need
50%, okay, and it'd be great if we can get to that 1/3 each, that's the goal, but, the livable reality is 50/50. And I appreciate Mr. Tomczyk saying, that you've had those discussions, but you did kind of say you've not had a solid agreement on that 50%, and that makes me a little queasy too. To Trustee Burion's point, I was going to say something along the lines of, we don't release this report until we have either reimbursement, but I don't really want to be sitting there with a $35,000 report and no partner either.
Well, for me, and no offense to the gentleman that's come a long way to be here, I am taking that this is going to be different than what we've already done.
Sure.
Certainly, it's going to be updated from 2 years ago, but I'm a little more hesitant on $35,000 if it's us and we get back a very similar document to what we have already paid for versus if we're in for 12 or 13 or maybe 17. That's a big difference for me.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you at all.
Could we just amend the motion to make it contingent upon the 50% of it being reimbursed by outside?
And I'll make some phone calls by Friday, I should have committed from everyone.
We have to see who made the motion and who seconded it.
Trustee Gray made the motion and trustee Casino seconded.
That's acceptable to you to make?
Yes, I'd like to amend my motion to make it contingent upon securing, through contract, securing a 50%, at least a 50% part.
Correct.
Becky, can I advise you on something? Somebody needs to be our client.
So my recommendation is it's going to be just the Village of Homer client.
Yeah, if you're the client and these other two split the other 50%, you have the controlling vote. And ultimately, we need to know whose goals are we here to support. So it's very important because there will be some conflict in the goals that a private sector group and a public sector group has. There just will be. So it is wise of you to take 50% and maybe have your other two parties be the other 50%, just because it gives you one more reason at the end to say, look, we've got to make decisions that are right for the public. And I'm not suggesting that there can't be a great marriage and opportunity, but I think somebody needs to be our client so we know exactly whose goals we're really trying to support. I think it's important for you. It's easier for us.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think there's a motion on the floor that doesn't have to,
Here's a amendment.
he's amended his,
So there's a revision to the initial motion. Is that acceptable to you? You made the second.
Correct. I accept Trustee Brady's revision. Second.
Okay, so it's contingent on getting basically a signed contract that they're going to go in with at least 50%, and then I'll make the phone call on the third one, and I don't see them backing out, so any other?
No, but I think Deb made an important point that maybe it is 50%, and that other 50% can be sorted out, right? But we're in for 50%.
Okay, yes.
Because I think that's an important point.
Okay.
it is.
Okay.
All right, so any other questions?
Thank you for that presentation.
Yes, I hope you want to, I'm still going. Correct.
Trustee Suisse? Trustee Varian?
Aye.
Trustee Casino?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Holtz? Aye. Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, is there any old business? Is there any new business? Next item is executive session. Is there a motion to go into executive session for purposes of discussing 1, personnel, 5, 1 LCS 120/2C1, number 2, review of executive session minutes, 5 ILCS 122C21, 3 pending litigation, 5 ILCS 120C11.
So moved.
Trustee Gray?
No second.
Trustee Salinas? Roll call, please.
Trustee Varian?
Aye.
Trustee Holtz? Aye. Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Casino?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers? Aye. Trustee Suisse?
Motion carries. 5-minute recess, so this will